Before you start this one, be honest with yourself about something. You have already tried. You wrote the affirmations, you said them to the mirror until the words came loose from their meanings. You built the board, you pinned the house, the body, the number, the version of you that finally felt safe. You kept the gratitude list. You thanked a sky that never once answered back. And here you are, still asking. I am not going to tell you to try harder. I am going to tell you that you were handed a broken machine and then blamed for the fact that it never started. For the next 2 hours, I am going to take that machine apart in front of you. You will see exactly why the asking failed, why it was always going to fail, and what the real mechanic underneath your life has been doing this whole time, while you were busy begging. And early on, I am going to give you one sign, one specific thing you will be able to feel in yourself inside 3 days that tells you the switch has already been thrown. Watch for it. When it comes, you will not be able to unfeel it. This is not motivation. There is no one here to cheer you on. This is mechanics, the quiet, structural, slightly dangerous truth about how reality actually takes its orders. So turn the lights down, put the headphones on, stop performing for a universe that was never in the room, and let me show you who has been holding the pen the whole time.
Chapter 1.
The POLITEST cell. Let me tell you about the most beautiful cage ever built. It does not have bars. That is the first thing to understand. A cage with bars is honest. You can see it, grip it, hate it, plan against it. This one has none. This one is built out of hope, and hope is the one material a prisoner will never try to break. You were given a set of tools and told they were keys. The affirmation. You stood in front of the mirror in the gray light of early morning, the tile cold under your feet, and you told the face looking back that it was abundant, that it was worthy, that it was loved. You said it the way you were taught, with conviction, with feeling, again and again, until the words came loose and rattled around in your mouth like dry seeds. The board. You cut the pictures out, or you saved them, and you arranged them. The house with the long windows, the body, the number, the face of the person who has not called. You hung your wanting on a wall, and you looked at it every morning, and looking was supposed to be the work. The list, every night, the gratitude. Thank you for this. Thank you for that. Thank you in advance for the thing that has not come. Said in that careful voice you use when you are asking a powerful stranger for a favor and you do not want to seem ungrateful for what you already have. And underneath all of it, the prayer you would never call a prayer. Please, please let it come. Please let me have been good enough this time. I asked the right way. I believed. I am open to receiving. You did everything they told you. This is the part no one says out loud, so I will. It did not work. Not the way it was promised. And the real cruelty is not that it failed. The cruelty is that it was built so that when it failed, you would turn the blame inward. You did not align high enough. You had a limiting belief hiding somewhere in the dark. Your subconscious was blocking it. You were not grateful enough, not pure enough in your wanting. You were handed a machine wired backwards and then taught to apologize to it for refusing to start. Now let me show you the wiring, because this is not faith and it is not opinion. Some of these tools do not merely fail to help. They do measurable harm, and people in laboratories have watched it happen. Start with the mirror. In 2009, 3 researchers ran a plain little experiment. They had people repeat a kind, ordinary phrase to themselves. I am a lovable person. The sort of line printed on the first page of 10,000 self-help books. Then they measured how those people felt. The ones who already felt steady felt a little better. Fine. But the ones who came in wounded, already doubting themselves, the exact people the phrase was written to rescue, felt worse than the people who said nothing at all. Sit with why. When you stand at that mirror and declare, I am loved, and some quiet part of you does not believe it, the words do not paint over the doubt. They wake it up. They drag the doubt into the light and stand it next to the claim. And now you are staring at the gap between the two. A gap you might have walked past unnoticed if you had only stayed quiet. The affirmation did not close the distance to the thing you wanted. It measured the distance out loud, every morning, in your own voice. So the mirror was not neutral. But surely the board was harmless. Surely looking at what you want, feeling it, seeing the life in full color, surely that at least pulls you toward it. It pushes you away from it. There is a researcher who spent decades on this exact question. She had people vividly imagine their wish already fulfilled, the future they ached for arriving in glorious detail. And then she tracked what they actually did. The finding broke the whole gospel. The more positively and vividly people fantasized about the future they wanted, the less they achieved it. Not the same amount. Less. The women who pictured themselves already slimmer, drifting past the donuts with serene indifference, lost meaningfully less weight than the women who pictured the struggle honestly. The students who saw themselves acing the exam scored lower than the ones who did not. The dreamers arrived last, or did not arrive at all. Here is the mechanism, and it is almost elegant in its cruelty. Your nervous system cannot fully tell the difference between a thing imagined in high resolution and a thing that actually happened. So when you sit and feel the wish fulfilled, really feel it, your body files it as an arrival. The tension that should drive you forward relaxes, your motivation drops, and your body literally settles, as if you had already crossed the line. You collect the reward of the finish without running the race. And a self that has already been paid does not get up. The board did not energize you. It sedated you. It let you spend the wanting in your head in advance until there was nothing left to spend in the world. And the asking. The thanking the universe ahead of time. This one is the gentlest and the most total, because it shapes your whole posture without you ever noticing. Every request is a confession. You do not ask for what you have. You ask for what is absent. The moment you say, please let it come, you have announced, with your entire body, it is not here. You have taken the position of the one who lacks, the supplicant at the gate, the small figure looking up, and you held that position daily, faithfully, for months, for years. You were not commanding anything. You were rehearsing the absence. You practiced the lack until you were fluent in it. Now ask the one question the people selling you the tools will never ask. Who benefits? A sleeper who knows they are asleep and furious about it is dangerous. A sleeper handed a beautiful, exhausting, never quite working ritual is not. Because every ounce of charge that might have gone into waking up gets poured instead into the affirmations, the board, the list, the endless polishing of the want. This is why I call it the politest cell in the invisible prison. The crude cages, the despair, the noise, the dull grind of the days, those hold most of the sleeping. But the ones who start to stir, who feel the walls and reach for something more, those ones cannot be kept by despair. They are too awake for it. So the gray architecture keeps a finer cell waiting for them. A spiritual one. One that feels like the exit. It hands you a method that keeps you on your knees, and it calls the kneeling freedom. It keeps you praying to the system instead of running it. And the most devoted prisoners, the ones who do the practice every single day without fail, are simply the ones who never test the door. Because they have been convinced the door is a wall, and the wall is a window. You are not a failed manifester. You are a faithful one. That is the whole problem. So here's what I promised you. The first sign. The one you can catch in yourself inside 3 days, before any of the rest of this proves itself. It is a silence. Not a silence in the room. A silence in you. For as long as you have been asking, there has been a low, constant negotiation running underneath your thoughts. A bargaining. A part of you forever leaning toward the universe, pleading, checking, asking, are we there yet? Did it work? Is it coming? What did I do wrong? You have lived with that voice so long, you stopped hearing it as a voice. You think it is just the sound the inside of a mind makes. When you stop asking, that voice has nothing left to do, and it goes quiet. You will catch it first in a small moment, waiting for the kettle, sitting at a red light, a gap in the ordinary day where the begging used to fill the space. And instead, there is only stillness and a faint, unfamiliar sense that something that was always tightened has let go. You might mistake it for emptiness. It is not emptiness. It is the sound of the room going still, because the one who was shouting at the walls has finally stopped shouting. That stillness is the switch. It is the first evidence that the operator is waking up. Watch for it. When it arrives, you will know this was real. But a silence is only the beginning, and stillness on its own builds nothing. To put the asking down for good, you cannot simply decide to. You have to see, all the way to the floor, why the asking was never going to work. Not because you did it wrong, because of what reality is actually made of and how it actually answers. That mechanism is the next thing I'm going to set in front of you. And once you see it, you will never be able to ask for anything the old way again.
Chapter 2.
The mechanism. You have spent your whole life being told the universe is listening. I want you to sit with something colder and stranger, and in the end, far more useful than that. The universe was never listening. It does not have ears. It is not a parent leaning down over your bed. It is not a clerk behind a desk, weighing your requests, deciding whether you have been good enough this quarter to be approved. It is closer to a machine, and a machine does not listen. A machine reads its input and returns its output, faithfully, without mercy and without malice, every single time you run it. So the only question that has ever mattered is the one nobody taught you to ask. Not how do I ask better? Not what is the right wording. The question is, what is the actual input? What is this thing reading? In the last chapter, I showed you 3 tools, and I showed you the cold laboratory evidence that each one quietly works against the person holding it. The mirror that widens the wound, the board that drains the charge, the asking that rehearses the lack. But 3 failures with a single root are not 3 problems. They are one problem, wearing 3 masks. And if you only ever fight the masks, you will spend the rest of your life swapping one ritual for another, certain that the next technique is the one that finally works. So let me take the masks off and show you the one thing underneath. The machine does not read your words. It never did. Your words are the most superficial thing you produce. The machine reads your state. It reads what you are actually being underneath the performance. not what you say you want, what you are convinced is true. Think of it like soil. You can stand over a patch of ground and speak to it all day. You can tell it how badly you need wheat, how grateful you would be for wheat, how you are open to receiving wheat. The soil does not hear a word of it. The soil is not for hearing. It is for growing whatever seed is actually pressed down into it. Plant wheat, you get wheat. Plant a weed, you get a weed. It will not argue, it will not correct you, and it will not save you from yourself. It will simply, faithfully, grow what you gave it. Your consciousness is that soil, and every state you genuinely occupy is a seed pressed down into the dark. Now here's the part that should make the floor tilt a little under you. The soil does not judge the seed. It cannot tell a hope from a fear. It does not separate the thing you long for from the thing you dread, because to the ground they are the same act. A seed is a seed. Both are pressed down with feeling, both are real to you. And the machine, being non-selective, takes whichever one you actually believe in and grows that. Read that again, because it is the whole machine in one sentence. The feeling of the obstacle is received as the request, not the words, the feeling. So picture what you were actually doing on your knees every night. You said, please, let it come. But underneath the polite words, what were you genuinely feeling? You were feeling that it was not here. You were feeling the distance, the lateness, the lack. That was the seed. The please was just the noise on top. And the machine reached past the noise, found the seed of lack you were pressing down with real feeling, night after night, and did exactly what it is built to do. It grew you more of it. You were never failing to command. That is the thing I most need you to understand tonight. You have been commanding flawlessly your entire life. You were simply commanding the absence. Every request was an order, and the order was always the same. It is not here. It is not here. It is not here. And the obedient machine returned, with perfect fidelity, a world in which it was not here. So let me correct the wound you came in with. You believed you were being ignored, that no one was on the other side, that your prayers fell into a box with no back. You were not being ignored. You were being obeyed. Every single time. The universe answered every prayer you ever sent, immediately and exactly, because the prayer was never the words. The prayer was the state, and it gave you, with terrible faithfulness, precisely what you were being. Not what you were asking for, what you were. That is a far more frightening thing than silence. And it is the first genuinely powerful thing you have heard in a long time, or so, because a person who is being ignored has no power at all. But a person who is being obeyed, and obeyed perfectly, has nothing but power. They have simply been aiming it at the floor. Now, there is one more piece, and it is the piece that has kept you from ever seeing any of this. It is the reason the trap holds even intelligent people, even people who feel the walls. It is the delay. Cause and effect are split, apart. They do not happen in the same moment. The cause is set in consciousness, in the dark, in private, in the state you hold. And the effect arrives later, out here, in the visible world, dressed up as an event, a circumstance, a piece of news, a thing that simply happened to you. This is what we call the delayed echo. The world you see today is not happening to you today. It is the echo of a state you were holding before. It left your mouth a while ago, and it is only now coming back. Stand in a canyon and shout one word into it. The word leaves you, and for a moment there is nothing, and then it comes back, faint, from the rock. Now imagine the canyon is enormous, and the echo takes not seconds but days. weeks. You shout a word on Monday. By the time it returns to you on Friday, you have forgotten you ever spoke. So when the sound reaches your ears, you do not hear your own voice. You hear a stranger, a verdict, a message from outside telling you how it is. And you respond to it. You take that echo of lack, the one you yourself shouted days ago, and you read it as the truth of your life. And you feel the lack all over again, and you shout the same word back into the canyon, harder this time, more desperate. Which returns? Which you answer? Which returns? That is the engine of the invisible prison. Not walls, not bars. A delay just long enough that you forget you spoke first. Long enough that you mistake your own returning voice for the voice of fate. And so you stand in the canyon of your own life, in an argument with an echo, certain you are reacting to reality, when reality is only reacting to you. This is why the asking felt like reacting to the world. You looked at the empty bank account and you asked for money, and it felt like a sane response to a real condition. But the empty account was the echo. It was Friday's return of a word you shouted on Monday. And by asking from the lack it showed you, you were not responding to your reality. You were renewing the order that built it. You re-shouted the word. You signed the same decree again in the same ink and handed it back to the machine and called it prayer. So now you can see the shape of the whole thing. The universe is a machine that reads your state, not your words. It is non-selective, so it grows whatever you genuinely believe, the dreaded along with the desired. And it returns the result on a delay, so you never connect the answer to the command. And you spend your life reacting to echoes you yourself produced. 3 masks, 1 mechanism. You were not doing it wrong. You were running the wrong machine in the wrong direction, with your hand on a lever you did not even know you were holding. And the moment you do know, everything inverts. Because if the machine only ever returns the state you hold, then the entire game was never about asking more sweetly. It was never about belief in the way they sold it to you, the strained, hopeful, fingers-crossed belief that is really just doubt in a nicer coat. The game is to change what you are being, in the dark, at the level of cause. And then to stop asking, to stop checking the canyon for a reply, to simply hold the state as already true, in silence, with the flat authority of someone who has no need to verify it, because they already know. That is not a request. A request leaks lack. This is something else entirely. This is the act of a cause that has remembered it is a cause. There is an old word for it. It was written down plainly almost a century ago by a man who had been exactly where you are, broke and stranded and begging, before he found the lever. He did not call it manifesting. He did not call it asking. He called it the command. And in the next chapter, I am going to put it in your hands.
Chapter 3.
The command. There is an old book, older than nearly everything else you have been handed about this, and it does not contain the word manifest anywhere in it. The man who wrote it was not a guru. He was broke. He was stranded in New York in the worst of the Depression, a dancer with no work and no money, desperate to get home to the island he came from and unable to afford the passage. He was exactly where you have been, wanting something with his whole body and watching the world refuse it. And then a teacher took that desperation apart in front of him, the way I have been taking it apart in front of you. And what was left when the begging was gone had a different name. He did not call it asking. He did not call it attracting. In 1939, he wrote it down in his first book, and he called it, plainly, the command. And I need you to feel the full distance between those two words tonight. Because that distance is everything. It is the whole difference between the life you have been living and the one that starts now. A request and a command are not two strengths of the same thing. They are opposites. They come from opposite places, and they produce opposite worlds. A request begins in lack. It has to. To ask for a thing is to stand in its absence and reach upward. And every request, however beautifully worded, carries that posture inside it. The asker is small by definition. The asker looks up. The asker waits to be granted. You have lived in that posture so long it stopped feeling like a posture. It just felt like wanting. A command does not look up. A command does not reach. A command is not spoken to a higher power because the one giving it has understood there is no higher power to petition. It comes from the one place a request can never come from. It comes from already being. Listen to the oldest command ever written down. You already know it. You have heard it your whole life and never once heard it as a technique. And God said, "Let there be light." Hear what is not in it. There is no please. There is no asking. There is nothing reaching upward to a granting authority, because the one speaking is the authority and knows it. There is no strain. There is no effort, no repetition, no chanting it 300 times into a mirror to make it stick. It is said once. It is short. It is total. It does not hope for light. It does not want light. It does not picture light on a board and ache toward it. It declares the thing from the place where the thing is already so, and the declaring and the being are the same act. That is the shape of every true command. Short, silent, certain. Spoken from already, not toward, not yet. And the man who wrote this down was blunt about the contrast, because he had watched people do the opposite and get nothing. He warned in that same book against exactly the thing you were sold. The loud repetition, the vain affirmation said over and over to force it true. He said that kind of noise is usually a confession of the opposite, that the very loudness is the proof you do not believe it, because a thing truly held needs no shouting. A century before the laboratory confirmed it, before the studies I showed you proved that the mirror widens the wound, and the chant makes the wounded feel worse, this was already written down. The mystic and the scientist arrived at the same floor from opposite directions. The loud asking does not work. It was never going to work. Not because you lacked conviction, because volume is the language of doubt, and the command does not speak that language at all. Let me give you the moment it became real for him, because it shows you the command is not a thought you think. It is a place you move into and refuse to leave. When he told his teacher he was desperate to get home to his island and had no way, the teacher did not coach him. The teacher said, "You are already there." And when he kept protesting, kept explaining the problem, kept reaching from the lack, the teacher got up and shut the door on him. Because there was nothing to discuss. There was no plan to make, no method to refine, no asking to do better. There was only one thing. Stop being the man who is trying to get there. Be the man who is already home. So that is what he did. That night and every night after. He did not picture the journey. He did not visualize the boat or the arrival or the money appearing. He went, in his imagination, to his island, and he slept there. He felt the warm air of it. He saw his own country as the place he was, and the city he was physically stuck in as the distant place, the relative place, somewhere over there. He did not ask to go home. He assumed he was home, and he fell asleep inside the assumption night after night. as a settled fact requiring no further thought. And the way opened, not by magic in the dramatic sense, by the mechanism we have already uncovered. He set the cause, in consciousness, in the dark, as already true, and the effect arrived later in the world, dressed up as a circumstance, an opportunity, a thing that simply happened to work out. The delayed echo came back in his new voice. He went home. So here is what I'm putting in your hands tonight. Not a chant, not a wish, not a more spiritual way to beg. The command, the act of assuming the state of the thing as already true and then ceasing, not reaching for it, not asking for it, not checking the canyon for a reply. Being it, quietly, with the flat authority of someone who has no need to verify what they already know, and letting the obedient machine do what it has always done, which is grow whatever you actually are. You do not petition the operator. You have understood finally that there is no operator out there to petition. You are the operant power. You always were. The hand reaching up and the power it reached for were always the same hand. And tonight that hand stops reaching and turns and gives the order instead. But I can already feel the reasonable part of you pulling back. It is asking the obvious thing, the fair thing. How? How can a state held quietly in the dark of my own head reach out and move a solid world that does not care what I feel? How is that not just another, calmer way of wishing? That is the right question. And the answer is underneath everything, in the bedrock that makes the command more than a feeling. Because to truly hold it, you have to know why it works. And that means understanding what the world is actually made of. That is where we go next. All the way down to the source code.
Chapter 4.
The source code. So now you are holding it, the command. And I know what is already happening inside you because it happens to everyone at exactly this point. You are holding it the way you would hold a tool you do not trust, at arm's length, half believing. A small voice in the back of your skull is already saying, all right, but how? How could a quiet feeling, held in the dark of my own head, reach out and move a solid world that does not care what I feel? That voice is not stupid. That voice is the most reasonable part of you. And if I do not answer it, here is exactly what will happen. You will try the command once or twice. The world will not move on your schedule. The old echo will come back loud, and that reasonable voice will say, "See, I told you." And you will set the tool down and then go back to asking, because asking at least feels like doing something. So we are going to go down, beneath the command, down to the bedrock that makes it work. Because a person who knows why a lever moves the world will keep their hand on it long after the person who was only hoping has let go. Your whole question rests on one buried assumption. You assume there are two things. There is you, in here, with your private feelings. And there is the world, out there, hard and external and separate, made of a different stuff than thought. And so the question becomes a problem of distance. How does the soft thing in here cross the gap and push the hard thing out there? I am going to take that gap away from you. Because the gap is the lie. The gap is the single illusion the entire invisible prison is built to protect. There is a book. It is old, older than your grandparents, published in 1908 by 3 writers who would not give their names and signed themselves only as the 3 initiates. They claimed they were passing down something far older than themselves, a key handed quietly from teacher to student across thousands of years. And they opened the whole thing with a single law. The first law, the one all the others stand on. Read it slowly. The all is mind. The universe is mental. They are not saying the universe is affected by mind. They are not saying mind is powerful, or that thoughts have an influence on matter, the way the gurus water it down. They are saying something total, that the substance reality is made of all the way down, at the root, is mental. That the world is not a solid place that your mind sits inside of. The world is a thought, and your mind is a movement within it. Sit in the room you are in right now. Feel the chair holding your weight. Feel the floor under your feet, the dull pull of gravity in your shoulders, the temperature of the air on your skin. It feels utterly solid. It feels like the most obvious fact in existence that this room is out there, real and external, and that you are a small, separate thing tucked inside it, looking out through two windows in your face. That feeling of separation is the dream being faithful. It is not proof that the wall is independent of you. It is proof of how completely convincing the dream is to the one who is dreaming it. You already know a place where this is true because you visit it every night. When you dream, you build a world. Streets, faces, weather, danger, the whole thing, rendered in full and convincing detail. And inside the dream, that world is utterly external to the dreaming you. You can lean on its walls. You can be hurt by its events. You can stand in a dreamed street and beg a dreamed sky for help. And the sky will seem as separate from you, as deaf, as indifferent, as any sky you have ever prayed to while awake. But there was never a gap. The street and the one walking it were always made of the same single substance. They were both you dreaming. And the moment you wake inside the dream and remember that, the question, how do I make the dream obey me, dissolves, because there is no second thing to make obey. There is only the dreamer, and the dream is what the dreamer is being. This is the answer to the reasonable voice. This is why the command is not a signal you send across a distance to a faraway universe that may or may not be listening. There is no distance. There is no far away. You are not petitioning the field from outside the field. You are a movement inside it. And a movement inside a mental field changes the field, immediately and necessarily, the way a thought in a dreamer changes the dream. Not because the dreamer is strong, because the thought and the dream were never two things. Now you can see, all the way down, why the asking failed. It failed at the root, beneath psychology, beneath feeling, at the level of what is actually true. Because asking assumes the gap. Asking requires two things, a sender and a receiver, a small self down here and a great granting power up there. Every prayer you ever spoke quietly affirmed the one lie that keeps you asleep. The lie that you and the power are separate. That it is over there, and you are over here, hoping it leans down. The one you were praying to was the one praying. They were never two. The hand reaching up and the power it reached for were always the same hand. And every night you spent on your knees in that posture of separation, you were not reaching the power. You were rehearsing the distance from it. You were practicing being the small thing, and the faithful dream gave you, exactly, a life that matched a small, separate thing adrift in a world that does not answer. This is the whole pivot of waking. The sleeper believes they are a small, separate self, dropped into a hostile external world at the mercy of its weather. A victim of circumstance, reacting forever to conditions that arrive from outside. And the gray architecture needs you to believe exactly that. Because a victim asks. A victim petitions. A victim never reaches for the lever. Because a victim does not believe there is one. The one who wakes sees the other thing, that there is no outside, that the circumstance was never imposed from beyond, that they are not a passenger in the world, but the operant power moving through it. Not a thing the dream happens to, the one doing the dreaming. So hold the room again, the chair, the floor, the pull of gravity. Nothing about it has changed, and everything about it has changed. It is just as solid as it was a minute ago. But you no longer read the solidity as proof that it is separate from you and beyond your reach. You read it now as what it is: the faithfulness of the dream, the exactness with which the field renders whatever the dreamer is being. That solidity is not your prison. It is your evidence. It is how completely, how reliably, the world will hold whatever state you press into it. This is the source code. The all is mind. There is no gap. You are not in the world is in you. And the command works because the commander and the commanded were always one substance, dreaming. But knowing this is not enough. I have to be honest with you about that. Because this is exactly where the clever ones get stuck. You can understand every word I just said. You can believe the world is mental, agree with it completely, repeat it to your friends. And you can still fail. Completely. For years. Because the command is not made of understanding. It is not made of belief, not the strained, hopeful belief they sold you. It is made of feeling. And feeling does not answer to your daytime arguments. Feeling has its own door, a specific gateway at a specific hour, when the soil of you lies open and a seed goes straight to the root. Miss that door, and you will hold the truth in your head and the lack in your life, and never understand why. Find it, and you will press the command down into the dark, where it actually grows. That door is the next thing I'm going to show you.
Chapter 5.
The door. Here is something you do every night, without knowing it is the most important thing you do all day. You sign a decree, and then you go to sleep on it. Whatever state you are carrying in the last few minutes before you fall asleep, that is the seed you press into the soil for the night to grow. Not the words you said at the mirror 12 hours earlier. Not the board you glanced at over coffee. The state you actually hold in your body at the edge of sleep. That is the command the machine receives. And most people, every single night of their lives, sign the same decree by accident. The decree of the day's leftover worry, the unpaid bill, the unanswered text, the quiet, familiar weight of not enough. They carry it across the threshold, and they hand it to the soil, and they wonder why tomorrow keeps looking like today. There is a doorway in each of your days, and almost no one is taught to use it. It opens at the drowsy edge of sleep. That soft, heavy, in-between place where you are not quite awake and not yet gone. Where the room is going dark and your thoughts are going loose, and the hard, vigilant part of your mind, the part that argues, the part that says yes, but look at your bank account, the part that keeps the lack locked firmly in place, finally lets go of the wheel. That part of you is the guard at the gate. All day it stands there. It is why you can say, I am safe in broad daylight, and feel nothing change. Because the guard hears the claim, checks it against the evidence, and throws it out before it ever reaches the soil. But at the threshold of sleep, the guard grows drowsy too. The gate softens, and a state held there does not get inspected. It goes straight down, to the root, into the dark where things actually grow. This is the door. And the man who wrote it down most plainly spent a whole short book on it in 1944. He had no interest in affirmations. He had watched people chant at mirrors and get nowhere, the same nowhere you got. He said the work was not in the words at all. The work was in the feeling, carried across that threshold into sleep. Assuming the feeling, not stating the fact, not picturing the prize on a wall, which, you remember, only drains you. Assuming the feeling. There is a difference between thinking the sentence "I am safe" and entering in your body the actual physical feeling of a person for whom the danger is already over. The slow exhale, the unclenched jaw, the shoulders coming down off the ears, the specific bodily relief of someone who is simply already fine. That feeling is the seed. The command is not a line you recite into the dark. It is a state you climb inside of and wear until it is the last thing you are being as the room goes black. So here is the practice, and I want you to notice how unlike the old rituals it is. There is nothing to chant, nothing to force, nothing to want at. You are not reaching for anything. Reaching is the lack. This is the opposite of reaching. You lie down. You let the day come off you. And as the drowsiness rises, you do not picture the whole grand movie of the dream fulfilled. You build one small scene, one short, ordinary, almost boring moment that could only be true if the thing were already done. Not the mansion. The familiar weight of your own key in a door that is already yours. Not the wedding. The simple, unremarkable feeling of their hand in yours while you wait in line for coffee, as though you have held it 1,000 times and will 1,000 more. Something so small and so settled, it carries no ache in it at all. And then you step inside it. From the inside, in the first person, looking out through your own eyes. You feel the one feeling that scene would give you if it were real. And you let that feeling be the thing you are holding as you slip across the threshold and out. That is the whole technique. You enter the state of the wish fulfilled, and you fall asleep as the person who already has it. Now the warning, because this door swings both ways, and the same mechanism that frees you has been quietly working you over for years. Whatever you carry across that threshold, you instruct. So the nights you fall asleep, furious or frightened, or rehearsing the argument, or scrolling the lack until your eyes give out, you are not resting. You are commanding. You are pressing the day's worst state down into the soil and ordering the machine to grow it. This is why the asking was never even the main problem. The main problem was the way you ended your nights. You signed the decree of lack in the dark, faithfully, thousands of times, and then you woke and asked the sky to undo it. You were countermanding your own order every single morning and renewing it every single night. So the discipline is not the morning. Forget the morning ritual. The discipline is the last 5 minutes before you are gone. Guard that doorway like it is the only one that matters, because it nearly is. Never let the day's lack be the thing you carry through it. If you can do nothing else, refuse to fall asleep as the one who does not have it. And I have to prepare you for something, or you will quit on the third night. When you start signing the new decree at the threshold, the old life does not vanish in the morning. It cannot. Remember the delayed echo. The world you wake into tomorrow is still the return of states you held for months, for years. That echo is still in the air, still arriving, and it will keep arriving for a while, loud and convincing, telling you nothing has changed. Meanwhile, the new seed you pressed down last night is still under the soil, in the dark, where you cannot see it. It has not surfaced yet. So there will be a stretch, and there is no skipping it, where you are holding the new state at night and watching the old echo arrive by day. where everything your eyes report says, this is not working. That stretch is not failure. That stretch is the exact, predictable gap between the cause you have started setting and the effect that has not yet caught up. Every person who ever changed their life walked through it. Most people turn back in the middle of it, because the middle is where the echo screams loudest and the new ground still looks bare. Because here is the thing no single night can give you. One decree is not a command. A seed pressed down once and then dug up the next afternoon to check on it will never grow. The command is a state held unbroken, night after night, through exactly the days when the echo is loudest and the evidence is thinnest, and every reasonable part of you is begging to go back to asking. Because asking at least lets you do something about the lack you can plainly see. To hold a state against the testimony of your own eyes. To stand in a life that still looks like the old decree and refuse, calmly, without strain, to re-sign it. That is the hardest thing I'm going to ask of you. That is the war, not a war of effort, a war of allegiance. Who are you going to believe? The echo or the command? And there is a place that war takes you, a floor, a bottom, the lowest point of this whole descent, where the old self that needs to see it before it will believe it finally has to die or finally has to win. We are almost at that floor now, and it is there, at the lowest point, that everything turns.
Chapter 6.
The floor. Let me tell you where you are right now, because I have been here, and I know how it feels from the inside. You have stopped asking. The constant negotiation in your head has gone quiet, the way I told you it would. You have been signing the new decree at the threshold, night after night. You understand the mechanism now, all the way down. You know there is no gap. You know you are the one dreaming, and your life still looks like the old decree. The number has not moved. The person has not called. The echo is still arriving, loud and daily, reporting back the same lack you held for years, and you are standing in the gap I warned you about. The long, bare stretch between the cause you have started setting and the effect that has not caught up. And every reasonable part of you has gathered at the door of your mind, and they are all saying the same thing. See? Nothing happened. It was just another technique. Go back to asking. At least asking lets you do something. This is the floor. This is the lowest point of the whole descent. And I am not going to lie to you and tell you it is comfortable, because it is not. It is the hardest place in the entire journey. And I brought you here on purpose, because everything turns here and nowhere else. I want you to understand what is actually happening in this moment, because it is not what it feels like. It feels like failure. It is not failure. It is a death. A specific one. There is a part of you that has run your entire life, and it is the part that is panicking right now, and it has to die for you to cross. It is the part that needs to see it before it will believe it. That is the old self, the seeker, the one who has spent years going from method to method, teacher to teacher, always reaching, always checking, always asking the world for evidence that it is safe to believe. That self cannot make this crossing. It is constitutionally unable to. Because the command requires you to hold a state as already true while the evidence still says it is not. And the seeker will never do that. The seeker's whole identity is built on waiting for proof. Ask it to believe before the proof arrives, and it short-circuits every time. It calls that belief foolishness. It calls the demand for proof being realistic. But look at what being realistic actually got you. Look at the life the seeker built. A life of permanent reaching, because a self that must see it first will, By the mechanism we have spent this whole film uncovering, command exactly the not having that justifies the next reach. The seeker cannot arrive. Arrival would end it. So it manufactures, faithfully, a world it never quite arrives in, and calls the whole exhausting circuit common sense. That self has to go, and the floor is where it goes. So here is what I am asking you to do. At the bottom, and it is the strangest instruction in this entire transmission, because it is not an action at all. It is the laying down of one. Stop trying to get there. Not stop holding the command. Stop trying. Stop straining toward it. Stop the subtle, constant, exhausting effort of reaching for the result, checking for the result, needing the result to show up so you can finally relax. That reaching is the seeker, still alive, still leaking lack into the soil with every grasp. The reaching is the last confession of not having. Let it go. Not the desire, the grasping. Release your grip on the outcome entirely. Not because you have given up, but because you have understood something the seeker never could. That a thing held as already true does not need to be chased. You do not chase what is already yours. You do not check 40 times a day to see if your own name is still your name. You simply know it with a flat, quiet, unremarkable certainty. And you go about your life. And the knowing requires no maintenance at all. That is the death of the seeker. It is not dramatic. There is no lightning. It is the quietest moment in your whole life. It is simply the instant you stop reaching and discover that you do not fall, that the ground was already there, that you can hold the state with no strain at all, because strain was only ever the doubt wearing a costume, and the doubt has nothing left to stand on. And in that exact moment, something turns over, something you will feel, the grief of all those years of asking, the exhaustion, the shame of all the nights on your knees. It does not get argued away. It converts. It turns right there on the floor into something else, because you finally see what all of it was. It was a god, asleep, dreaming it was a beggar, praying to itself and not knowing, commanding the lack with perfect authority and calling it bad luck. You were never weak. You were never ignored. You were never behind or broken or insufficiently aligned. You were a tremendous power aimed at the floor by a hand that had forgotten it was holding the controls. And the hand has just remembered. This is the peak. This is the exact moment the begging ends and the command begins. And I want to speak to you very directly here. Because if you have followed me all the way down to this floor and felt that turn, even faintly, then you are not the same person who started this transmission. The seeker in you is dying. The operator in you is waking up. And the waking one needs something different than the seeker did. The seeker needed reassurance. The operator needs the field manual. Everything I have given you in these last hours has been the why. Why the asking failed. Why the world is mental. Why the door is at the threshold of sleep. Why the seeker has to die. It is the map of the whole mechanism, and it is yours now. And it is enough to begin. But knowing the mechanism and living inside it daily are two different disciplines. The map is not the territory. And the territory, the real, hour-by-hour practice of holding the command through a life that argues back, of running the revision at night, of starving the old states and feeding the new one, of standing in the bare ground through the whole length of the gap without re-signing the decree of lack. That is the work of more than one night and more than one transmission. That is what the next transmissions are for. They are not motivation. There is no one there to cheer you on, you know that by now. They are the field manual for the ones who have put the begging down for good the chamber-by-chamber descent into the actual mechanics, the revision in full, the mental diet in full, the specific person and the trap inside it, the discipline of the Sabbath of holding the state when the echo is at its loudest, the work the seeker was never ready for, laid out for the operator who finally is. So if you felt the floor give way to ground just now, do not let this be the only door you walk through. Follow this signal, subscribe to the channel, and let the next transmission find you when you are ready for it. Not because I need you to, because the one who just stood up off that floor has a long way to walk, and these were only ever meant to be the first steps of it. But before you take a single one of those steps, you need to know what the next 3 days are going to be like. Not in theory, in practice. Because the morning after the seeker dies is a very specific kind of mourning. And if no one warns you what it looks like, the echo will be waiting for you, louder than ever, wearing the face of proof that none of this was real. It will not be proof. It will be the last test. And I am going to walk you straight through it.
Chapter 7.
The next 72 hours. So you stood up off the floor. The seeker died, or began to. You felt the turn. And then you woke up the next morning, and your bedroom looked exactly the same. I want to talk to you about this morning specifically, because it is the most dangerous morning of the whole process, and almost nobody is warned about it. The night before, you felt enormous. You felt the power come back into your hands. And now, here is the same ceiling, the same phone with the same number on it, the same weight in your chest before your feet even hit the floor. And a voice says, quietly, so it was just a feeling. A nice feeling. Gone now. That voice is the echo, and it has come for you early because it knows this is when you are softest. Here is what you have to hold on to. The thing that gets you through the door of this first day. The life that greets you this morning is not a verdict on last night. It is a recording. It is the delayed echo. Still playing, still arriving. The return of states you held for months and years before you ever found that floor. Of course, it still looks like the old decree. The old decree is still in the air, still coming back. You did not undo a decade of commands in a single night. And nothing about this morning says you failed. This morning was always going to look like this. I told you it would. The bare ground is not failure. It is the gap. So you do not fight the morning. You do not argue with the recording. You let it play the way you would let an old song you are tired of play out in another room without getting up to dance to it. And you go about the first day as the one who already has it, while the room still says you do not. Now let me give you the actual practice for these 3 days, because vague is useless here. You need to know what to do with your hands. There are 2 disciplines, and only 2. Guard the day, sign the night. Guarding the day is the mental diet, and it is simpler and harder than it sounds. All day long, the echo will hand you states. The bill arrives and hands you fear. The silence from the phone hands you rejection. A passing thought hands you the old familiar, not enough. Each one is an invitation to feel the lack. And every time you accept the invitation, you press the old seed back into the soil. You re-sign the decree you came here to cancel. The diet is not positive thinking. Do not stand in the kitchen affirming at yourself. You know by now what that does. The diet is refusal. It is the moment-to-moment discipline of declining the state. The fear arrives, and you do not fight it, and you do not chant over it. You simply do not pick it up. You let it move through, and you do not become it. You return quietly, to the flat certainty of the one who already has the thing. Not arguing with the lack, starving it. A state you do not feed cannot grow. You will fail at this constantly for the first few days. That is fine. The skill is not never dropping the state. The skill is noticing you dropped it, and not making a tragedy of it, and simply stepping back into the new one. 100 times a day if you have to. Each return is a rep. The returns are the whole exercise. And then, signing the night. This is the one that matters most, the threshold work from Chapter 5. And these 3 nights, you protect it like your life depends on it. Because in a real sense, your next life does. Whatever happened during the day, however many times the echo got you, none of it is the decree. The decree is the last 5 minutes. You lie down, you let the day come off you. You build the one small, ordinary scene that could only be true if the thing were already done. And you fall asleep inside it. As the one who already has it. Every night, without exception. You forgive the whole day at the threshold, and you sign clean. But there is one more thing that is going to happen in these 72 hours. And it is the part that breaks most people. So I am going to name it before it gets to you. The echo does not just fade quietly. Often, right before it breaks, it gets louder. You will start holding the new state, really holding it. And the very next day, the exact opposite will show up, bigger than before. You decide you are financially secure, and a surprise expense lands. You release the person, you stop reaching, and suddenly there is news of them that lances straight through you. And the seeker, who is not all the way dead yet, leaps up and screams, "You see, you made it worse." Holding the state backfired. It did not backfire. You are watching a thing collapse, and collapse is loud. When a structure that has stood for years finally gives way, the moment before it falls is the noisiest moment of its whole life. This is the old decree breaking up. The circumstance that has to dissolve to make room for the new one does not always dissolve gently. Sometimes it has to come apart in front of you. And coming apart looks, for a moment, exactly like getting worse. The old teachers called this the bridge. The stretch of seeming destruction you have to cross, where the appearance of things falling apart is actually the appearance of the old structure clearing out. The people who turn back almost always turn back here, on the bridge, one step from the other side, because the bridge is the one place where the evidence is most violently against you. Your job on the bridge is brutally simple and brutally hard. Do not resign. Do not let the loud collapse stampede you back into the state of lack. Hold. Walk. The noise is not the thing getting worse. The noise is the thing leaving. And then, somewhere in these days, you are going to get your first piece of evidence. And I have to coach you on how to receive it, because the seeker handles this badly. It will be small. It is almost always small. Not the whole dream delivered to your door. A strange little coincidence. A door you assumed was locked that turns out to be open. A person who crosses your mind and messages you that afternoon. An opportunity arriving from a direction you are not even watching. The seeker's instinct, the second this happens, is to grab it, to get excited, to check frantically, is this it? Is it working? Is it happening? And to start refreshing reality 40 times an hour, waiting for more. Do not. That grabbing is the lack rushing back in. Excitement that it is finally working is just a confession that part of you did not believe it would. The operator receives the first small evidence differently, calmly, with a quiet, almost bored recognition. Of course, that is the ground beginning to answer. Naturally, you note it, You let the small win confirm the state you are already holding, and you do not pounce on it, and you do not demand the next one. You stay in the certainty. The small thing is not the prize. The small thing is the echo beginning, at last, to come back in your new voice. So that is the 72 hours. The same room, refusing to argue with it. The diet by day, the decree by night. The bridge and the discipline of not re-signing while the old thing collapses loudly in front of you. And the first small evidence, received with calm instead of hunger. Do this, and at the end of 3 days, nothing in your life may look dramatically different yet. The number may not have moved, but you will have moved, and you are the cause. So the movement that matters has already happened. The constant negotiation will be quieter still. The echo will have less grip, and underneath it all, there will be a strange new steadiness. The steadiness of someone who has stopped waiting for the world to tell them who they are, because they have started telling it. That steadiness is not the destination. It is the first proof that you have your hand on the right lever, in the right direction, at last. But I did not bring you all this way to help you manifest a parking space, or a text message, or a slightly better Tuesday. Those are the toys. They will come, and they matter less than you think. There is a far larger thing this was always about. The thing underneath the thing, and it is time to say it plainly. This was never about getting what you want. It was about who you become on when you finally remember you were the one holding the pen.
Chapter 8.
The walkout. Let me tell you what you actually walked into at the very beginning of this, before you knew any of it. You came in tired. You came in having tried everything, having begged a sky that never answered, having blamed yourself for a machine that was wired backwards. You came in as a prisoner who had been handed a beautiful cell and told it was freedom. And somewhere in these last hours, you stopped being that. Not because I gave you a technique. The technique is almost nothing. A small scene held at the edge of sleep. You could have learned that in 5 minutes. What took these hours was the harder thing. Taking back the pen, remembering that the hand writing your life was always your own. Here is the truth about the invisible prison, the last and largest one. You were never inside it. It was inside you. It was never made of walls. It was made of a single forgetting, the forgetting that you were the operant power, the dreamer, the one consciousness pressing seeds into its own soil, and then weeping at the harvest as if a stranger had planted it. The whole gray architecture, the entire machinery of the sleeping world, runs on that one forgetting and nothing else. It does not need bars. It only needs you to keep believing you are small, and you cannot unknow what you now know. That is the thing about waking. It is not a state you maintain. It is a door that does not close again. You can forget it for an afternoon, an evening, a bad week. The echo will get loud, and you will believe it for a while. But you can never again fully believe you are powerless, because you have seen the lever, and you have felt your own hand on it, and a part of you will know, forever now, that the begging was always a choice, and the command was always available. Now I have to tell you about the one who walks out with you, because you are not leaving alone, and if I let you think you were, the first hard day would undo everything. The old self does not vanish. The seeker died on the floor, but the shadow remains. The old man, the accumulated weight of every fear and habit and small identity you wore for years. He walks beside you now, and he is not your enemy. This is the part people get wrong, the part that sends them into a war with themselves they cannot win. You do not defeat the shadow. You do not banish him or hate him or affirm him away. He is the momentum of who you used to be. And momentum is not evil, it is just slow to turn. So you master him the way you master everything now. Not by force. Force is the seeker's tool, and force only ever presses the struggle deeper into the soil. You master him by no longer feeding him, by declining day after day to become the states he offers you. He hands you the old fear, and you do not pick it up, and unfed. He quiets. He grows faint. He does not die, but he learns to walk behind you instead of in front. The drunk magician sobers, slowly, as the one holding the controls stops handing them back. So here you are, at the edge of the thing you were told you could never leave. And I want to be honest with you about what is on the other side, because it is not what the manifestation sellers promised. There is no finish line out there. There is no day when it is all done and the toys are all delivered and you sit in the sun forever, complete. That was the seeker's fantasy, and the seeker is gone. What is out there is something better and more demanding than a finish line. What is out there is authorship, the rest of your life, lived as the one who writes it. The command: run not for a parking space or a paycheck, but for the whole shape of a self, deliberately, eyes open, awake. This is what it was always for, not to manifest toys, to wake up and to master the one who sleeps, and to walk out of a prison that was only ever a forgetting, and to become, slowly and on purpose, a lighthouse. Because there are others still inside, still on their knees, still begging the sky. And the only thing that has ever woken a sleeper is the sight of someone who is unmistakably awake. You do not save them. You cannot. You simply stand in your own life, lit, commanding cleanly, and you become the evidence that the door was always there. So this is the decree I leave you with. Not one to repeat at a mirror, one to be. You are not waiting for the universe. The universe is waiting for you. It always was. It stood ready from the first day, the most faithful machine ever built, holding its breath to grow whatever you finally, deliberately chose to be. Every moment you spent asking, it waited. Every night you spent begging, it waited. It was never withholding. It was never deaf. It was only ever waiting for the operator to wake up and give the command. The asking is over. You know that now. It was over the moment you understood there was never anyone on the other side to ask. There was only ever you, the dreamer, briefly forgetting, the god, briefly asleep. And now, awake. Stop manifesting. Start commanding.
So, you made it to the floor, and you made it back. Sit in that for a moment before you move. Whatever you were before you pressed play, you are not quite that person now. You have seen the lever, and you cannot unsee it. I told you at the start there would be no one here to cheer you on. That has not changed. What I will tell you is this: the door you just walked through does not close again. You can forget it for a bad week. You can never again fully believe you were powerless. But knowing the mechanism and living inside it day after day are two different disciplines. So before you go, 3 things. The full manual, the complete descent, chamber by chamber, is waiting at mindhavenaudio.cloud. That is the field manual for the ones who have put the begging down for good. Not another technique, the mechanics, in full. Second, you're not the only one who stopped asking. There are others walking out the same prison right now, and you'll find them on our Facebook. Stand with them. It is easier to stay awake in company. And if this reached something in you, subscribe. Let the next transmission find you when you are ready for it. Not because I need you to, because the one who just stood up off that floor has a long way to walk. And these were only the first steps. The asking is over. Now go and give the order